Sleeping Dogs is a game released in 2012 by Square Enix that is a predecessor to the highly acclaimed True Crime series. It's an open world action adventure game and one of my favorite games of all time. Just like I did with my Bully run, I haven't played this game in a few years, and I usually always go back to it every now and then to replay it. So why not have it be different this time for Sleeping Dogs as well? So here we are. Can you beat Sleeping Dogs without punching? The rules are simple. Punching is not allowed, obviously. Counters are allowed. Upgrades are not allowed. This includes cop upgrades, triad upgrades, health upgrades, etc. We are allowed to use buffs from vending machines though. And lastly, environmental takedowns are allowed. Also, I decided this time that I won't be talking about the story too much like I did in my Bully challenge run, and instead try to focus mainly on the gameplay. I will still talk about the story beats, but not nearly as in depth as I did before. With all that being said, let's get started. The game starts with us on the run from the police as a result of a deal gone wrong. Nothing too special happens here, it's just the game teaching us the free running mechanics for the most part. Afterwards, we get caught and go to jail. Once we get out, we meet up with our childhood friend Jackie. With us being an undercover cop, Jackie is our ticket to getting inside the Sun On Yee. We eventually run into our first encounter with some thugs, and Jackie gets thrown like a football. Like I said earlier, tutorials will not count in this challenge. We have to do a combo for the game to register it, so we do that. Afterwards, we learn how to do a heavy attack, which luckily for us is a kick, which is what we're going to be doing a lot throughout this run. After that, we learn how to grapple and throw enemies. You can punch enemies in this state, but the game doesn't force us to, so I just bypass it. Once we take all of those guys out, we get to the last enemy, which we just do an environmental takedown on him.
Now you know he did.
Next, we go to meet Winston in the gang. Winston is the head honcho of the group, and tells us to go with Conroy to handle an issue they had. We go out back and Conroy says, nah, we gonna see if you got hands or not, which leads us to the counter tutorial. Like I said earlier, counters are allowed. Way will sometimes do counters that involve him punching the enemy, but we aren't the ones directly inputting for him to punch. It's always random, so it won't count in this run. After that, we meet Dogeyes. He's a dick. Next, we go around the night market with Jackie collecting protection payments from different vendors. Some of them don't want to pay, so we have to take on some goons. I just use environmental takedowns, which you'll see me do a lot honestly, as they're basically insta kills. We go a little further down and we catch some punks picking on this old man. For one of the enemies, I decide to just keep tackling him. Wei can do a follow-up attack to this where he'll strike the opponent on the ground, but that involves us inputting for him to specifically do that, so we don't. Afterwards, the game tries to show us the upgrade menu. Like I said, we aren't allowed to do any of these upgrades. The only thing we can use is buffs from vending machines. Next, the game teaches us about favors. These are basically side content, so we won't be doing these at all. We do have to fight some enemies along the way for this quest, so we just throw them around and give a couple of them free tickets to Boombox City. Next up, we have to go collect payment from Ming. This leads us into a chase sequence. I used to really enjoy these when I was younger, but honestly now, I wouldn't say I have the same amount of love for them. These sequences usually always end the same way, which is us following them until they get to their friends, and you have to fight them all, which is exactly what happens here. We just use the environments and take them all out, allowing us to follow Ming again. He doesn't go too far, and now we have our final stand with him. We take out all his minions, get it? Minions? Okay, I'm sorry. And then it's a one-on-one fight. The issue with this fight is that Ming has a weapon. When an enemy has a weapon, you aren't able to grab them, and obviously they do way more damage than unarmed enemies do. So we have to rely on counters and kicks here. Eventually, we do take him out, and then the cops come and we get arrested again. Yeah, we suck at this not getting arrested thing. It's here we meet Officer Tang, who just now finds out that we're an undercover cop. We're gonna see her a few times throughout this run as we have to help her a lot. For now, we start our next mission with Jackie. Wei doesn't just want to be an errand boy for the whole time, so him and Jackie decide to try and pull off a heist to impress the higher ups. We go to the docks and have to fight off some enemies. Luckily, the ocean is right next to us, so we're able to just throw them into the water as it instantly takes them out. Some more enemies show and we just kick the crap out of them. After that, the vehicle with the items we're trying to take drives off, so we have to chase them down. This is where the game teaches us the ramming mechanics, which is honestly a mechanic I wish was more common in games. After minutes of flawless driving, of course, we eventually catch them and disable their vehicle. We get the items, and now we have to escape the cops. In my opinion, this game probably has one of the easiest cop systems in any game. You can either just ram the police cars until you're clear, or get out of the surrounding area, which really isn't hard to do at all. After we escape them, we drop Jackie off and we've completed the mission. Next is Minibus Racket. Winston is proud of us and decides to give us a bus racket where we'll make some money from. The thing is, we don't have this racket yet. It's Dogeyes, so we go to take it over. We just go to different spots around the area and beat some thugs up. We also have teammates with us, so we don't even have to worry about every enemy. After a while, we spot the enemy bus and we have to stop them and get all their riders. We just honk at him until his meter was full and everybody hops into our bus. We drop the passengers off and we're done. Now we start our first case. Cases aren't considered main story missions, but you have to do them to continue the main story. So it's like, why not just make them main story missions? Regardless, in this case, we're basically trying to bust the Kidnapping racket. We go talk to Ming, who then tells us to go to Popstar. We do him a favor, then he gives us the package. After that, the cops come and we have to escape. But boy, let me tell you, these cops suck. Literally, look at this. He just lets me rev it and leave. We return the package to Ming and we're done with part 1 of the case. Next, we have to hack into a security camera so we can arrest a seller in the area. We have to take out some enemies first, but they were getting the best of me, so I had a better idea. After running over all of our enemies, we hack the camera and go back to our apartment to make the arrest. You're supposed to wait and see who the seller is, but I completely missed it and the game just had to tell me who it was. Yeah, not my proudest moment. Next, we start a mission I consider filler. Basically, we meet this girl who's touring and we show her around. We then take her to a martial arts dojo that she's wanting to sign up for. It's here where the game tells us we can come here to learn new moves. It then forces us into a tutorial for a new move. Like I said earlier, tutorials won't count in this run, so this doesn't affect it at all. Unless you want it to, then by all means, go ahead. After that, we just have to defeat the remaining enemies however we please and we're done. Next is Club Bam Bam. Basically, Winston is mad because Dogeyes was mad that we messed with his bus racket and retaliated. We have to go to the club and get to Winnie to win him back over. In order to get to him, we need to gain access to the VIP area, but we need approval from a host first. So we found a girl named Tiffany and we have to sing a song for her. I hate these, by the way. After that, Wade gets confused and starts talking to the wall. I don't know what's going on here either. Finally, we head up and confront Winnie, but he ain't going for it. So we take his goons to the aquarium. After that, we chase him to the bathroom and it's here we encounter more enemies, specifically the grappler enemy. These enemies are similar to enemies with weapons in the sense that you can't grab them. If you do, they'll just pick you up and slam you on the ground. Luckily, if your face meter is filled with just the yellow bar in the bottom right, then you're able to grab them. So we're going to try to do that when it comes to them mostly. We get to Winnie and finally he listens and joins our side again. Next, we continue case 1 from earlier. All we do is follow Popstar around until he makes a deal. We take a picture of it and get him busted for good, thus ending case 1 completely. I would have skipped over this, but this leads us directly into our next main plot point. Winston tells us to come over, and when we get there, it turns out it was a setup. They think we're a cop, which, I mean, they're not wrong, and they're about to take us out. Luckily though, Wade uses quick thinking and turns it around completely on Ming, saying how even though his supplier is in jail, he's still finding a way to deal, meaning he must be getting it from our enemies. We get saved, Ming gets played, and that's the end of it. Next is listening in. We just have to go plant some bugs in the hangout so we can listen in on them when we're not there. The only interesting thing about this mission is that at the start, a thug comes out of nowhere and steals the equipment from us. And I don't even think it ever gets explained why he does this. He just did it because he was bored or something. Anyway, we chase him down and finally we can take him out and get the device back. We plant the bugs, then get out of the building, and that's it. We start our second case next, which is about illegal street racing. Unlike what I said in my bully video, the racing in this game is much less forgiving when it comes to screw-ups. The enemies here usually are always able to keep up with you, and if you fall behind for any reason, then good luck trying to catch back up with them. It's not impossible, but definitely not as easy as you'd expect it to be. Regardless, the races are still pretty fun and probably one of my favorite games to race in. We win the race and we're done. Next is chain of evidence. We get a call from Tiffany and she has a gun that someone told her to hold for them, and she wants us to take it off her hands. This pretty much is just a gun tutorial. Nothing really worth speaking on here, but just know we're going to be getting into gunfights a lot from this point on. Our next mission is where I'd say the game really starts to expand overall. Dogeyes shot at Winston's mother's restaurant, the place where we've mostly been meeting at, and Winston is not going to let that slide. He wants us to go to a warehouse and take one of Dogeyes' most important people alive to make him one of ours, while also destroying the warehouse completely. We go inside and have to take out a lot of enemies. Luckily, there is an environmental action here that we can keep spamming over and over, so taking them out isn't much of a hassle here. Finally, we get a gun and it turns into a gunfight. One of the best things about the gunplay in this game is the slowdown ability. Basically, when you crouch over an object, time will slow and it makes it super easy to hit targets. We're going to use this a lot, as it makes it super easy for us to hit headshots on enemies. We get to Suwa, but he said he ain't going out without a chase. So we just chase him around until we catch him. Once outside, the cops are there and the facility blows up, giving Suwa a chance to escape again. We have to chase him down, but it's not difficult. We just hop on his vehicle and take over. We lose the cops, then take him back to Winston, and that's that. Next is Uncle Po. We upsetted the higher ups from the stunt we just pulled, and now we have to go meet Uncle Po. He sends us off to work for someone else while Winston stays behind to chat with him. All we have to do is go collect some money from a woman. She has a lot of security for some reason, so we have to disable all their vehicles before we can get to her. We take them out and then we hijack her vehicle. She doesn't have the money, so she tells us to take her stashed car. We return it and we pass. Next is Bribe to Be. Nothing really interesting happens in this mission. We just drive Winston's soon-to-be wife around and help her complete tasks. Near the end, there is a section where we have to get some flowers that she wants from the temple, but we don't even have to fight. We can just run past the enemies completely, so we do that. We drop Peggy off and that's it. Next is the wedding, and I'm sure as you can guess, it doesn't go as planned. Yep, we have to take out some baddies and get to Winston and Peggy. We're just using fire mints and kicks as usual until we get a gun. We shoot our way through the enemies until we get to Winston and Peggy, and unfortunately, they both passed away. It's then we get to Uncle Po, who is wounded, and we have to get him to a hospital. We shoot our way through a few more enemies, and we get there and we're done. Next, we're confronted by a man named Ponytail, who came on behalf of Big Smile Lee. Big Smile Lee is pretty much the real main villain of this game. We basically tell him to screw off, and him and his goons waste no time letting it off in this bitch. We shoot our way through Club Bam Bam, and when we get outside, we have more enemies to take out. After a while, we get in a car with Jackie as we chase Ponytail down. Instead of us being the ones driving, it's Jackie, so we just have to disable all the vehicles until we get to the area. Once we crash, we start chasing him on foot for a little bit. It's then that we reach him and it becomes a one-on-one fight. Like I've been saying, the bosses in this game don't feel like bosses at all. They just feel like regular enemies. Nothing is really difficult about any of them, which kind of sucks honestly. Once we take him out, he escapes from us and we have to run from the cops. It's here we're saved by Lady Broken Nose Jane. She basically wants us to work together to keep Big Smile Lee from taking over, so she surprisingly isn't a threat, but an ally. Our next mission sees us doing a favor for Mrs. Chu. We saw one of the attackers at the wedding and she asked us to bring him to her. We go to where he is and we start laying people out. How we always know where people are, I don't know, but that's not important. We're standing on business right now. Eventually, it turns into a car chase and we have to catch him and take over the vehicle. We take him back to Mrs. Chu and she decides she wants to make some beef stew. Next up, we have to help Jackie as he got scammed out of receiving some money. The person we're dealing with is actually an undercover cop as well, if I remember correctly, so we both aren't really trying to give our cover away. We chase him and I end up eating shit. But after that, we shoot through some enemies, put him in the back of the trunk, and take him to Officer Tang. Next, we go back to Mrs. Chu to see what she found out. Turns out, Dogeyes was the one behind the entire wedding attack, but I think anyone who had a brain could have put two and two together. We have to get to him and take him back to Mrs. Chu. When we find him, he instantly starts running, which, I mean, honestly, it just makes these guys look so weak. They have no problem shooting up weddings but run away when they see one guy. It just doesn't make sense to me. Regardless, we chase him on a boat for a little while and then on foot. Eventually, we get to where some of his goons are and we kick them around. Something that I didn't mention is that when the face meter is full, it will refill our health. So that's honestly how I've been able to make it through some of these sections. Once we take them out, we get to Dogeyes and show him why he was right to run from us. Of course, more of his goons show up and we have to take them out. Nothing too difficult. After that, we have our boss fight and we throw him around like a rag doll. We then throw him in the trunk and have to shoot off some enemies while our friend drives us to Mrs. Chu. Once we get there, Wei leaves Dogeyes with her and she decides she wants to make beef stew again. Next, Jackie has a heist that he wants us to pull off again. We fast talk our way through some workers and get the tools we need to break into the trucks. Once we get there, we find out there's enemies guarding it. Now, normally, I would say we fight them, but I had a better idea. It always works, I tell ya. After we open the right trunk, some more thugs come and drive off with Jackie in it. We just have to stop it, and to our surprise, Jackie is actually putting in that work. We then drop Jackie off, and he ends up getting arrested. That's where the mission ends. Next, we have to stop the 18K from taking out Uncle Po at the hospital. We just shoot our way through a lot of enemies until we reach our friend Ricky. It's here where we have to turn the power bank on or Uncle Po will die. So we get through some more enemies, turn the power back on, then fight off some more enemies until they're all gone. Once that's done, we just have to escape the police. Once done, we drop Ricky off, and that's the end. Our next mission sees us basically being a bodyguard for a famous American artist. Nothing too special happens here. We just get some girls for him and then do some karaoke. After we leave, we do encounter some thugs messing with his car, so we give them some change to make a phone call. After that, we drop him off at his hotel and we're done. The next few missions really aren't anything worth talking about too much. We go pick up some girls for Ricky and they want to race, so we do that, then take them home. The next mission just sees us breaking into someone's house so we can vandalize and move stuff around to scare the owner. After that, we sneak into one of the girls' houses that we picked up earlier so that we can bug it, and that's it. Next is the funeral. We go pick up Jackie and we head to the funeral for Uncle Po. Unfortunately, the 18K show up and decide they're about to be the cause of some more funerals. We also find out that Pinju is actually on their side and is allowing this to happen. So it turns into a shootout and we just have to get to the bottom. Eventually we do get to the bottom and I just decide to fuck shit up. Big Smile Lee then says that he deserves to be the new head honcho, but everyone else agrees we should have an election like always. He doesn't like that and storms off, ending the mission. Our next mission sees everything we have being attacked by Big Smile Lee, as he wants to get rid of us completely so that there is no choice but for him to be chosen. We start with having to fight off some thugs, but I can't punch of course, so I run them over. Yeah! Next we go to the Golden Koi and hold off the enemies trying to destroy it. Eventually we go to the back and hold off some more enemies there. After that we go on the roof and we just shoot them down until the timer runs out. We then go to Ricky as we don't want him to be on Big Smile Lee's side and convince him to get his girl out of the city. After that, the mission is done. Alright, we're almost done here. Our next mission is Buried Alive. In this mission, Jackie has been taken and I'm sure you can guess, but he was buried alive. We go to where the person on the phone told us to, and of course it was a setup. We just use environmental takedowns and then we have a boss fight. Just like the others, this boss fight is a literal joke. We literally just toss and kick him around until he's done for. We found out where Jackie is, so we get on the boat and we drive there. But on the way, some enemies are trying to stop us. Nothing we haven't dealt with before. We save Jackie and take him back to shore and then we're done. Now we enter the final two missions. We get a message from Jackie to meet him somewhere. When we get there, we find out that he's been killed. We then get bamboozled and knocked unconscious. It's here where we're tortured for hours until eventually we see our window to escape. We get to a room where there's a bunch of enemies, but luckily for us, there's enough environmental actions here for us to use that we don't even have to worry about kicking. Eventually, we manage to get a gun, and we have to shoot our way through a lot of enemies. And I mean a lot of enemies. After a while, it turns back into a fist fight, and we just burn their faces off. It's here where we enter a boss fight. And I'd say out of all of them, this is actually the only one that feels like a boss. We still take him down pretty easily, but he's the only one that did put up some sort of challenge. After we take him out, we proceed on to the final mission. We go to where Big Smile Lee is and we have to take out a lot of his goons. But instead of fighting, I'm sure you know what happened. We then stomp out this poor dude and take his gun. After that, we mow down more enemies, and some more enemies, and some more enemies. Can we even call ourselves a cop at this point? We eventually get to the restaurant where Big Smile Lee is and oh wow, more enemies that we kill. Ultimately, in the process of this, we take out Ponytail, who we haven't seen for a while. We then get to Big Smile Lee, who shoots us in the shoulder. Really, the game should have ended here, but plot armor wins as usual. We chase him down and suddenly Wei becomes Superman. We crash into this gas station thingy and I don't know how, but we both survive. And thus the final boss fight begins. Now in this fight, you can't even really punch anyway. Wei is still hurt, so he'll just swing all weird like. You're meant to use counters to win this fight, so we literally aren't doing anything that we haven't been doing anyway. At the end, Wei will start punching Dogeyes repeatedly and you're meant to press the button to keep it going. But you don't have to. If you don't touch anything, Wei will stop punching him. So we didn't have to do any inputs here that would have probably ruined the run for us. We pick him up and toss him into the ice chipper, and Big Smile Lee has been defeated once and for all. Pendrew goes to jail, Wei and Officer Tang part ways, and the Red Post decides to leave us alone for good despite knowing that we're a cop. And that is the end of Sleeping Dogs. So, can you beat Sleeping Dogs without punching? Well, if you don't count the tutorial, which we didn't, and you don't count the counterattacks that way can do, then yes, you can absolutely beat this game without needing to punch an enemy at all. It was fun to go back and give this game a replay while putting a twist on it. With that being said, I do want to attempt different type of challenge runs. I don't just want to do no punching challenges for every game. So the next challenge run you see on this channel might be something completely different from the last two. With that being said, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe, and share. It would help me out a lot. But for now, have an amazing week, and we'll see each other again soon.